Good morning. We are on chapter 5, page 202, and we're about to start responsive design. This is only the part 1 for designing for mobile devices. As you can see, we are still working on the fitness website and we are making it responsive. So you probably don't have this nav looking like this just yet, but what we're talking about when it comes to responsive, you can emulate what the phone, what it's going to look like on the phone if you right click and hit inspect. And you can toggle between devices by using the toggle device toolbar. So it'll tell you if you hover above each one what it is, what viewport you're looking at. So laptop, tablet, and then of course mobile small. And this is what you're wanting according to page 203. You want your home page to look like this. You want your About Us page, which is figure B on page 203. So look like this. Notice how the pictures went away. You're trying to condense and only show the most important stuff on a mobile view. We haven't done classes or nutrition yet. And then your contact page should look like this. So again, you try to do away with all the extra bells and whistles when you're looking at it through the mobile view. Responsive design, it tells us that it's a website development strategy that strives to provide an optimal user experience of a website regardless of the device or browser used. So that pretty much the website just responds to whichever device you're using so that it gives you a better viewing without any like horizontal scrolling when you're using a mobile. Looking at page 204. They talk about this website and they're saying exploring responsive design. So when you pull up this website, if you do the same thing, you'll notice how the nav bar is going horizontal. You'll notice how there's also an aside element over here. And then of course your main is over here. So what happens with responsive when you do it on mobile view, you'll notice that the aside element went away. The nav bar is now 3 dots and you have a vertical view of the nav bar. So it's just saying exploring responsive design. So it's showing you different websites and how they look like when you're doing responsive. And then you get yours back over here when you get your nav bar going. So that's why they bought that up. Same thing with the Boston Globe. You're viewing it as a laptop, as a mobile, it'll look different. Gives you what we call the hamburger menu item. And it has the three lines. Okay, so going back to the fitness, we also talk about flexible images. That's what we're going to do here. On page 205, they talk about responsive versus mobile website. So the mobile website approach means that developers build a new parallel website from scratch, designing it for small mobile viewports. You do not want to do that. You want to just go ahead and create one website and have it be responsive. So you don't want to have people having to view 2 different websites to get the mobile view. Okay, so let's go over to fluid layouts on page 208. Remember that units of measurement. We're wanting to use M. So let me show you what I mean by that. M versus pixels. That way you're using something that is a relative unit of measurement versus a fixed unit of measurement. So pixels are fixed. And so they give you a nice table on page 209 on how to recognize what the differences are. And actually when you're creating all of your images, when you're making them flexible, what you'll notice is that you're deleting all of the height and width attributes. And then you're just going over to your CSS and you're using an image selector with a max width of 100%. And that's what makes it flexible and that's what makes it responsive. And that's how we got our logo to fit. So that way it stays in the container instead of it going over or looking pixelated like it did in the last chapter. Okay, and right on page 212 is where we start coding. So in my videos, I've taken a different approach. I've already coded everything for you. And what I'm going to do is just highlight some of the main parts that you should be looking at. So on page 212, what you've done is make sure that you're reading the part where it says open the index.html. So you want to make sure you're on the right one. Remember the fitness one is the template. So the template one doesn't have as much content. It's just used over and over again to create different web pages out of it. So on this one, on page 212, step 1, it's telling you that you are going to be editing your index.html. And you're focusing on your nav bar. So you're focusing on all of these. And you're creating line items for them. That way they have their own inline elements. And then that way when you decide to do something for the CSS of it, it'll actually target those specific elements. So let me make sure on page 213, you're deleting the non-breaking spaces, so you no longer see any non-breaking spaces, which were the NBSPs. And it tells you, so Q&A, why am I deleting the non-breaking space characters? You will use CSS to set the padding and margin between these links, so you no longer need the characters to create space between the links. And that's right, because if you look over in the CSS, you are going to be putting margin and padding, so you no longer need to put non-breaking spaces. Let me pause this for 1 second, because I have somebody calling. Okay, so continuing, sorry about the pause. Continuing where we left off. What I've done is I've gone ahead and commented out the CSS, because if you look on page 214, they're showing you on figure 5-14 what your nav bar is going to look like. So by creating each one as pretty much like a bullet, it creates its own line for it. And then when we add the CSS, so I just comment out the CSS so you can see what that looks like. But when we add the CSS back to it, so control / and this is what the book is going to take you on and tell you to do, and then save it, you'll see that it becomes a lot prettier. Or maybe not. Maybe I didn't save it. Yeah, and that's how you have your border radius, you have your background color, and it tells you to do all of that in the following pages. Then make sure that you're looking at how to put in your container. You want it to have 100% width. Container it's almost like your wrapper. It's interchangeable. You can use a wrapper or container, but you always want to have that div element, because that's what's going to help wrap all of your elements into one. I always add a container just so that I have more flexibility with it. And that's this one right here.
I got you.
So the body background color, what we're looking at, and always inspect your elements too. So when you're here, you can just click inspect, and you can see each part and what we've changed. So you have the body background right here, and it'll tell you where it's selected. So let me see, that's the container. So if you look at body, it tells you the body background color, and you can always see what it would look like without that background color. So the body background color is everything that's in this background, versus the container, if you look at the CSS down here, is what is making the object center, and what you can make even more changes to. You could even put another div color on it. 1 second. Okay, let me make sure. 1 second.
Hey, are you there?
Hey, yes.
Hey, can you hear me? I got you on speaker.
Give me 1 second. I'm doing a recording. I'm trying to pause it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. 1 second.
But cool.
I just can't find the pause button.
I want to be on her recording.
Is there a way you can give me a call back in like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm almost done with this one.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. I could not find the pause button, so I'm gonna keep recording. Okay, so I'm almost done here. Okay, so we have our fitness, and Then we talk about, oh, the text decoration property. So when you look at that, that's over here. This one is super popular. This takes away the underline from your links. So this is targeting your links. It's what's making it, and if you want to see what that is from the front, when you inspect it, you can see that that is referring to these guys. And so by putting the text decoration to none, you no longer have those lines that make them look like that. So that's what that's doing, the text decoration. Okay, you always want to analyze your homepage for mobile first design, see what you can take off, see what you can leave off, because when they're looking at it through a phone, they don't want to see too much stuff. They rather just see the important stuff that they need to see. For a fitness website, they just want to see maybe the hours that the club is open, who they should contact. They don't really need to have all those paragraphs that we have, for example, over here. If you have struggled with getting healthy and need the motivation, all of that can be saved for the desktop view, and then it will be hidden when they view it through the mobile. So this is the only thing that's appearing in mobile, and then when you set the selector for the desktop, you set it as display none. And then we're going to be learning about media queries in part 2, and that'll kind of be your breakpoints. So when you're resizing your window, that'll help you out, letting you know when it's become mobile, tablet, desktop, things like that. Okay, then you have to be very careful because they are going to switch up on which page or which one you're working on. So on page 233, you're now working on the About page. So About Us page. So you want to make sure that you know to read those blue headings. To modify the About Us page, open about.html in your text editor. You're going to remove the line breaks. So I've already done that. And then this is where you're hiding the pictures. So you're setting the display to none, and then that'll hide your pictures, equip. So anything with the class equip, which is this, will be hidden because you've put that on your CSS to be hidden by putting display none. We talk about the span element, what that does for you. And then, yeah, that is it. So this will be the first part of chapter 5 on how we are starting to make our website responsive. You're also going to be doing something with the span element right here, span class equals desktop. So you don't need to always put it into a div. You can put it in a line itself by just using the span. So that's what they talk about, I think, on page, what was it? On page 237 when it comes to the span element. Okay, and those are the only ones we've worked on so far. So we haven't gotten to nutrition or classes yet. We've only worked on the template, which is fitness.html, the contact page, the about, and the index page. And then this is the CSS here. This might be a good moment to pause just to make sure that your CSS matches mine. And make sure you're also adding comments. Comments are important. And then, of course, your image. Then this is how your index should look. And then, of course, your final fitness website. Oh, I think I opened the template up. So far it looks like this. And then for your organization, make sure that you have it, your root folder, your fitness folder. Then you have your subfolders, your CSS, which would have your style sheet. So let me put all files so you can see that. Then you go up one level, images. You should have your images. Nothing in media yet. We'll get to that in a later chapter. Template should have your fitness.html. And then your other 3 web pages are on the outside of all those folders. Thank you. And I will be doing the next video here shortly. Now, how do I pause this?